We've been talking about this Reform Act. Already the president has threatened to veto it, even though it hasn't even made it to his desk yet. This Reform Act would actually require the president to follow the law and respect the separation of powers. Joining me is the bill's sponsor, Missouri Senator Roy Blunt. Good afternoon to you.
Hey, Dana, it's good to be with you, and it's good to be talking about how we could enforce the Constitution.
Exactly. Well, it doesn't seem to be so shocking, except the fact that you have to have drawn up something like this just to remind the constitutional law scholar that is our commander-in-chief that there is a reason why our government is obviously structured the way that it is. Did it surprise you that he already threatened to veto it?
It doesn't surprise me that the president doesn't want any more restraints on him than he could possibly have, and he doesn't want the restraints that the Constitution already has. I mean, and one of the things that you hear every single day, and I hear every single day, is what are you going to do about it? Whenever you and I and others agree, and members of Congress agree, that we believe the president's way beyond his executive authority, one of the things members of Congress don't have is the ability under the law to go to court. So there's no real remedy short of the House impeaching the president and the Senate having that, and that's not going to produce a result. We know who controls the Senate and how that would go. But what this would do is give the Congress a way to give itself standing so that either house of the Congress, wouldn't have to be both houses, either house of the Congress by resolution could resolve that the president was outside the boundaries of the law and empower the Congress itself to go to court and not just have to file a friend of the court brief, as I've done as a non-lawyer many times under this president, but to actually be able to take the case and not wait for some so-called injured party. The injured party here is the Constitution of the United States, and we need to figure out the very best way that the members of Congress can find every avenue to defend the Constitution of the United States.
Absolutely. The Enforce the Law Act, for those who, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, it basically allows, or it allows Congress to sue the president over whether he has properly discharged his constitutional obligation to take care of the laws that he faithfully executed exceeds constitutional limitations. And Senator, there are a number of issues where it is without argument that the president has exceeded his authority. We're looking at 37 different modifications to a law that is the responsibility of you in the Senate and in the House, our elected officials in the House, to modify an already passed law, not the president of the United States.
That's right. Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution is very specific when it says what the president shall do, which is shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, not changed at will, not modified to meet current circumstances. But the President of the United States' duty is not to pass the law, it's to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And how do you postpone them? There's nothing in the Affordable Care Act that gives the president the ability to postpone it over and over again. There's nothing that allows the president to decide when he appoints members to the National Labor Relations Board whether the Senate is in session or not. The Senate gets to decide that, not the president, though the current majority in the Senate, I think if asked, would say, oh, it's fine with us if the president decides, but the courts are not going to decide that. So there's one of several cases where I've joined other Republican senators to file a brief with the court that says we absolutely believe the president is outside his authority and we want the court to rule in that way. And so far the courts are ruling in those cases, like the Hobby Lobby case or the Little Sisters of the Poor case, on the constitutional inability to take away people's freedom of religion without a compelling interest where others are hurt by them fulfilling their religion. So in case after case, we see the president beyond where the law and the Constitution and any tradition in our country would take him. And the Enforce the Law Act is another tool that, as a matter of fact, is one of the few tools that you'd have to give the Congress in these days to let them fight back with a president who just with no apologies over and over again says, I don't think the law should quite apply here, whether it's the Defense of Marriage Act or he wants to set his own labor laws. It's It's a process that we have to find ways to reassert the Constitution of the United States of America.
Absolutely. Have you found some Democrat support in the Senate, or is this going to be a party line?
I think it will be, and we're going to work hard to find a way to bring it up in the Senate. As you pointed out yesterday and again today, it passed the House yesterday. All we have to do is pass that and send it to the president, and he says he'll veto it, but let's have that fight if that's what the president wants to do. But to do that, we have to have Democrats in the Senate. So far, over half of my Republican colleagues are on a bill that I just filed, because I wanted to be sure and file exactly the bill that was the final bill that the House passed. And so yesterday I said, we're going to file this bill as soon as the House passes it. We'll finalize it. More than half of my Republican colleagues. So it has more than 26 co-sponsors already, and we'll have more. And I think the Enforce the Law Act, is one of the things we ought to be talking about, because it's just a fundamental responsibility of the executive, whose job it is to execute the law, not to write the law, not to change the law, not to decide which law is good and which law is bad, but to enforce the law.
And it is amazing that the president already put himself on record saying that he would veto, he would not support any legislation which requires him to act within the guidelines of the Constitution, which is truly stunning to me, Senator. I know it probably doesn't surprise you as much because you are there in D.C. and you see it quite more frequently up close than we do, but it's still a pretty stunning turn of events.
Well, even the fact is, I think the surprise here, and you're saying it, is that the president makes no bones about it. He wouldn't be for a law that says he has to enforce the law. And we've seen time after time with this president where he says, well, this immigration law, we're not going to enforce this part of it anymore, and we're not going to defend the Defense of Marriage Act in court. And by the way, we're going to change the IRS laws to say whatever the administration wants them to say, and we're going to change the Affordable Care Act, which is neither affordable nor will provide better care. We're going to change that about every 2 weeks in some substantial way, and with no apology. He's got his pen and his phone, and that is what the President of the United States has been driven to think that the way to make the country work is just to do whatever he can do that changes whatever he thinks needs to be changed.
Absolutely. It's the Enforce the Law Act. Missouri Senator Roy Blunt. Senator, we appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks so much.
Well, let's enforce the law and support the Constitution, and make the president do that most importantly as well.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Senator. I know we'll be talking to you again soon.
See you soon.
Take care.